With the 2020 NBA season coming to a close, we've now shifted fully into off-season content, and one of the biggest things people like to do in the off-season is rank players and debate how they stack up against each other. There's no more games to be played until next year, so we've seen everything we're going to see from the players for the time being, so it's the perfect time to have discussions like this. As I've done in each of my last two videos and will continue to do for my next few, I will be going through each position and ranking the 10 best players at the spots. And after having done the point guards and the shooting guards already, today we move on to the small forwards. Before we get started though, it turns out about 82% of you that watch the videos aren't even subscribed. So please, if you like the content, consider hitting the subscribe button because not only does it help the channel out a ton, but I would also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. Before we get into the top 10, I wanted to discuss some honorable mentions that just missed the cut, and the players in this category are Kelly Oubre, Robert Covington, and Will Barton. Kelly Oubre has been a productive and reliable role player for the majority of his career, but this season on the Suns, he really took his game to another level. He's a solid defender that always has been able to play on both ends, but now he also gives the team a nice secondary scoring option, having put up an efficient 19 points per game this year. With Covington, he's the Swiss Army knife of the NBA in that his ability to play multiple different positions and impact the game in a positive way for them made it possible for the Rockets to transition to the small ball game they wanted. Then with Will Barton, he's a talented shot creator that the Nuggets were missing in the playoffs. The fact that they made it as far as they did without him is very impressive because Barton's scoring punch is something that usually helps the team in a big way. Now, starting at the bottom of the list and working our way up to the number 1 spot, at number 10, we have Andrew Wiggins of the Golden State Warriors. Wiggins is a player who has a very negative reputation in the NBA world for a variety of reasons, but it's important to keep those reasons in context and not over-exaggerate them. Wiggins was expected to be a big-time superstar when he was drafted, and he's nowhere close to that. His defense has always been a mess, which has been one of the biggest complaints about him, along with his usually poor shot selection, but overall we have to admit that he is a pretty good scorer of the basketball as he puts up about 22 points per game. Plus, one thing that was encouraging for me this past season was that he did show improvement creating for others, which was another huge weakness of his in the past, so because of that, he just sneaks into the top 10. Next up at number 9, we have Caris Levert of the Brooklyn Nets. Levert is a player that I have become very high on after this season, and for both his sake and the sake of the league, I hope the Nets trade him to a team that will give him a lead role because I worry that he's going to be heavily reduced next season when Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and Spencer Dinwiddie come back. Levert is a smooth operating, crafty, smart wing player that can run the offense, make plays for himself and others, and take over a game both inside and out. In the bubble, the Nets roster was heavily depleted, and yet he was still going out there and battling hard, which says a lot to me. I think he has the ability to climb up this list, but that very much depends on what team he plays for and how big of a role he has moving forward, because the talent is there. Next up at number 8, we have Bojan Bogdanovic of the Utah Jazz. Bogdanovic had arguably his best season in the NBA this year, and while his game isn't very flashy, he gives whatever team he's on a highly efficient secondary scorer who shoots threes at a high level. He averaged 20 points this season while shooting 41% from 3, and the Jazz really missed him big time in the playoffs because he was held out due to injury. The Jazz went out and acquired him last offseason specifically because of how perfect he fit the system they run and how he would help take pressure off of Donovan Mitchell on offense to score, but unfortunately the bad luck with injuries held him out of a fun playoff series, but next year he'll be back ready to bounce back. Up next at number 7, we have TJ Warren of the Indiana Pacers. Warren's performance in the bubble had everybody on notice, and you could have legitimately argued he was the MVP of the play-in games. It started with a 53-point performance against the Sixers, and then he scored over 30 points in 3 of the next 5 games. Warren is another player who has been ridiculously slept on throughout most of his career, but as time has gone on, more people have finally started to realize how good of a scorer he can be. On the season as a whole, he put up 20 points per game while shooting 54% from the field and 40% from 3, and took over as Indiana's #1 option in the absence of Victor Oladipo. Up next at number 6, we have DeMar DeRozan of the San Antonio Spurs. DeRozan has become a bit of an afterthought ever since he got traded away from Toronto to San Antonio, but he's still producing at a similar level and playing the same style he always has. DeRozan is one of the best mid-range players in the league right now, at a time when the mid-range game isn't exactly much of a focus anymore, but his ability to face up and take defenders on there, post them up, knock down pull-up jumpers, and get to the basket is up there with the best scorers. He puts up a very solid 22 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists per game still, and even though the Spurs are in a weird spot as a team right now, with a combination of inexperienced youth and older players on their way out, he's still a bright spot left on with a lot to give to a team. Now, to start off the top 5, we have Brandon Ingram of the New Orleans Pelicans. After being used as the key piece in the Anthony Davis trade, Ingram came to New Orleans with something to prove, and with a fresh start out of Los Angeles, he broke out in a huge way. He made his first All-Star game, his numbers across the board rose, and he really looked like he was finally able to put everything together after gradual growth over the years. He put up an efficient 24 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists per game this year. His aggressiveness to score was much more consistent, and he still has so much more room to grow, which tells me he could continue to rise up the ranks as time goes on. Up next at number 4, we have Khris Middleton of the Milwaukee Bucks. The way the Bucks season ended was definitely nowhere near as successful as they were hoping, and they exited the playoffs in the second round in fairly disappointing fashion. But despite all of that, you can't ignore how strong of a year Middleton had. It was easily his best year as a pro. He provided an incredibly reliable second scoring option to Giannis Antetokounmpo on the perimeter, and he very nearly joined the famous 50-40-90 club because of how efficient he was scoring the basketball. Giannis gets a lot of the credit with the Bucks' success when they finished the season with the best record in the NBA, but Middleton also played a huge role in their success and proved he was a big-time player at the position. The Bucks rewarded him with a big max contract last summer, and he showed up, so this ranking is very much deserved. Up next at number 3, we have Jayson Tatum of the Boston Celtics. Ever since Tatum's rookie season, people have been sky high about his potential and how good he can truly be, and after 2 years of inconsistent flashes of brilliance, he started to put it all together this year. One-on-one, it's a tough task to shut him down because he can beat you in so many different ways to get a basket, and he makes the toughest shots look easy at times, which can be demoralizing for a defender. He once again played a big role in leading the Celtics to the conference finals, and at the age of just 22, he's just getting started and should continue to rise up the ranking over time. Next up at number 2 on this list, we have Kevin Durant of the Brooklyn Nets. We didn't see anything from Durant this past season because of an Achilles tear he suffered in the NBA Finals back in 2019, but his career speaks for itself, and 2 is the absolute lowest he should ever be on a list like this, simply because of the injury concern. At his best, Durant's a lethal scorer of the basketball, and an absolute matchup nightmare for anybody on any team, because he's essentially 7 feet tall with the skill set of a guard. He's a 2-time champion, 2-time Finals MVP, 4-time scoring champion, and an MVP winner, so we all know how great he is, but it will be interesting to see if he can regain that form after a serious injury like this. He might not look like his normal self right away, but I still feel pretty confident in him being a top player once he gets back into the swing of things. And finally, the number 1 spot on this list goes to Kawhi Leonard of the Los Angeles Clippers. Before I say anything else, if you're wondering where LeBron James is, I actually included him in the point guard ranking video because that's the position he played pretty much all year long. So no, I did not forget about the King. With that being said, Kawhi takes this top spot here pretty easily, despite the disappointing end of the Clippers season, because I'm not going to be too big of a prisoner of the moment. Sure, he did disappoint, but on the year as a whole he still played at an elite level, and of course you have to take everything he's accomplished in recent years into consideration, and he is, after all, a multiple-time Finals MVP. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below how you would rank the players at the small forward position. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.